So, Lori, do you want to start by introducing yourself? Just if you could tell us who you are, where you live, how long you've been, just give us a little snapshot of who you are and what you do.
Okay, yeah, sure. My name is Lori Messham. I'm the owner of Palm Beach Attachment Center. I've been doing therapy for about 30 years. I've been doing attachment therapy for 22 years. I got training through Dr. Terry Levy, Michael Orland's is where it first birthed from. Um, and then I met Matt and Fawn Bradley, who were therapeutic respite parents, and Matt was part of Terry and Mike's team. And then they continued to mentor me uh, in the field of attachment because they broke from there, went and developed Beatitude House. And so from there on, I was working with really severe cases. um, the Department of Children and Families paid for me to go out to Colorado to learn attachment work with a high profile case with some sibling group that um, was doing a lawsuit against the state. And so I was then told if I went out there, I would have to do some trainings about what is attachment in foster groups and some other groups. And so that's how it started. Um, and I work with kids that are as severe, and then kids that are mild. And I've worked with children that are infants up to the oldest, he was 70 something. So I've worked with a variety of people and I've watched lots of families that are on the severe end where their children are predators, if they actually murdered somebody. Um, I've watched the Lord change and heal them. And so my practice, it infuses Christian beliefs, biblical beliefs into the therapeutic process because I believe there's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical healing that all takes place simultaneously. And I've seen the most happen when families are open for healing in all dimensions. And so I've been blessed to be part of lots of different families' lives who have gotten transformed. And I've learned through I'm trying to think even back in 2003 is when I think I first met Nancy and started to understand what she was doing and going to some of her trainings at the time. And then then I just started getting family after family who needed help counseling. So I've been doing it ever since. It's probably about 75, 80% of my clientele now. And so I work with a lot of families trying to help them heal and transform, overcome their victimization, and then become overcomers. And that's basically it.
So, when you say that you worked with really severe kids, so what if you have a child or there's a family that okay, their child is not perpetrating, they're not killing anyone. Do they still need therapy? Like what about people, like we adopted them as an infant, they have some behaviors. Is it something that's necessary?
So, yes, it is. I liken it to I'm like the surgeon. All kids that have attachment issues, mild through severe, I believe can really benefit from attachment therapy, where they learn to deal with their trauma, their rage, anything that's manifested even at a very in utero. I worked with one who was adopted a couple minutes after birth, and he had a lot of in utero trauma. And he was 17 when he came in, and he was putting holes in the walls, and his parents were amazing people. So he in a year man, everything just changed dramatically once we started putting the dots together for him of why he has the anger he has with facts. And so we use facts in a therapeutic manner to help them understand themselves and normalize their feelings that really manifest across the board for most. There are exceptions to the rules, and we want to attune to each child and their needs. Um, Not just, it's not a formula. However, what I do see is a lot of common themes, a lot of common emotions that is embedded in these children or teenagers that block them from fully being able to trust caregivers, their forever moms and dads. So it's a spectrum. And so I will tell people that if you have a child that is in the moderate and not severe, it's just a shorter timetable. That's the good news. The more severe, the longer it takes, the more trauma. And when we talk about trauma, we're talking about uh, birth mom giving up for adoption or removed from her. If there was in utero trauma, that's another wall of trauma from drugs or domestic violence or even sexual assault. Those are each walls or barriers that keep moving that child or teenager into more severe range because for each trauma, they're learning, I can't trust people. I can't trust an adult. I have to take care of myself. And then once they're put up for adoption or if they're in foster care, each placement is a trauma usually because they're just starting to calm a little bit, maybe relax, trust in that, and then they're picked up and they're moved to another home. And so there's that before they get into their forever family. And so that sort of pushes them along. But that's where I see, we have to pinpoint and help them grieve the
Mhm.
losses. And that's really what attachment work is about. It's about peeling back all their layers so they feel safe enough to grieve and connect. And I think that's the other piece that maybe we want to talk about
Yeah.
is how, from what I've seen on my end, because I'm the therapist. And I have lots of friends who have adopted as well from both the domestic foster care system here in the States or internationally. And I pretty much across the board see these wonderful people who open up their hearts and just want to, want to give love to these kids. But I see them having a mentality of I want this child to, I want to give them love, but they're going to fit and conform into the system that I already have in place because that's what I know. And when that child doesn't fit like a puzzle piece in that system, it's like either they think they're doing something wrong or the child's doing something wrong or you're both doing something wrong, and then they're clashing. And then the walls and the rigidity and the disconnect gets greater and greater than the chasm, you grow further and further, and more frustration occurs. And that's not even including the ones that are more severe, that are strategizing and you don't even know half the things that they're doing. These are
Right.
just a lot of regular kids that have been told, put your stuff in a bag or a suitcase, you get a new family. Isn't that wonderful? And then it's all supposed to work out. And if I just love you enough, it's going to help you adjust. And the truth of the matter is, if we're not talking about the losses for our children and who they were
Mhm.
and allowing them to be angry, because grief is not just sadness, grief is anger too. It's waves of anger, shock, and sadness. And it's not linear, it's fluid. will go in and out. And how long for each one? It's everybody has a different timetable. And you'll know you've moved through it when you've moved through it. So I also see a lot of mentality of parents and adults who are just like, well, I've had them for 10 years and they were only with their birth parents for 2 years. So that should have undone everything. It's not like that. If we don't get to the roots of where the pain and the trauma live, and they don't trust us with their heart in true vulnerability, not masked vulnerability. And believe me, these children know how to adapt well in masks. I mean, the parents, I know all of them that are watching are just going, you're telling me they're, Academy Award winners. They really are. They're great at masking things, but that's a maladaptive strategy. They didn't choose to do that. Maybe now they're choosing to do it, but it's a survival skill that they learned because fear, you know, got hold of their heart. And now they're going, if they really knew the real me, maybe they'll not love me too. And they'll reject me just like birth mom or birth dad or all the other people who did. And so it's really starting to learn to attune to them to help them grieve is really what the core of therapy is, as well as parent coaching. So you're not reacting as a parent to their triggers, and that we've worked with your own triggers from your own childhood to help you stay regulated emotionally so you can help regulate them. They know what buttons to push.
Mhm.
They're
So,
great at that. They're like, circus time, here we go.
yeah,
I know what to say to mom. I know what to say to dad. I know how to get them to start fighting. If,
right,
if they triangulate, they're well versed in that. And the chaos that they create is from the chaos that they come from.
right. So, how do you attune? Talk more about that. How do you attune with a child, and how do you attune with a child who's making crazy?
Okay, so one, you have to stay regulated. So half of the battle or more, and parents hate to hear this, is working on your own stuff to get you regulated properly so you can respond to their needs, figure out what they're needing, because they're probably not even knowing what they're needing. You need to respond, not react. But when they don't comply, and that's where I see, the fireworks go off for parents. And believe me, I have 3 kids. I get it. But
Mhm.
with these children who have attachment wounds, um, they are extra sensitive to everything, and therefore they will create that distance if they feel like you aren't safe emotionally for them. And your heart may be to be emotionally safe, but if you're reacting and your anger is coming off as a threat to them in any way, shape, or form, and just by being an adult, you're going to be scary to them. And it's going to make their amygdala, their fight, flight, freeze part of their brain go off. And that's where they start coming back or screaming or doing a behavior where they're like letting you know, you're making me unravel. And some of it's for control, and some of it's not. Some of it's just an amygdala response.
Mhm.
How much? This is part of a tuning. I don't know. We got to figure that out. We got to put words to some of the behaviors and see what connects you and your child together, not creates more distance because you're going, I want the compliance more than I want to connect. That is key in attunement. Attunement is not about compliance, although the more attuned you are, the more the child will want to comply. At least from my experience, that's what I see progressively happens.
Hmm. Lori, one of the things that comes to my mind when you talk about this subject as a parent is in theory that makes sense, but then in action, it's always balancing, well, we still have things to get done. Like we're still trying to accomplish the day. And so I know personally, like in practice, it can be very complicated and kind of easier said than done. But I know therapy has been super helpful. Can you speak to the therapist's role in helping the parent navigate that complexity and how that can kind of aid in that?
Yeah, so the therapist, I mean, the number one rule that we agree with, that goes along with Nancy and her models of the parenting is mom has to take good care of herself, okay? Because without mom, we've got nothing. You're the stability, whether you want to be it or not. You're the regulator, whether you want to be or not. You're the everything. You're the key to the heart. And so I'm not the key to the heart. They're not coming home with me. And so my job is to help, number one, all moms feel validated and heard, regardless of the feelings. So a therapist should always, no matter what you're saying, you should feel validated. Your experiences should feel affirmed, and you're not crazy, number one. And there's nothing that's too much. All of the moms that I have ever worked with are burnout, usually by the time they come to me, and they've gone through I don't know how many therapists, and they're pretty hopeless in any kind of progress that they're going to make it, but they desperately need something to change because they don't want to give the child back to the state. They don't know what else to do with the child. They're losing everything, including, the other kids, if there are other kids in the family. It's affecting everybody. So first we have to get mom or mom and dad, and if there's a marriage there and they've triangulated these things, we've got to get everybody on the same page and working towards the same goals. So mom feels supported. If mom doesn't feel supported, then none of this will work. Because I will say this, I have worked with a few teens. I'm trying to think here, a few teens that were almost 18 or in their young adulthood or in adulthood, where they can get healing without the parents. Uh, but even my adults that I've worked with, if the adoptive parents are willing to be intermittently part of our therapeutic process, it is so healthy and helpful because internally these kids are so little. And even the adults that I work with, they're like, still children on the inside. So it's really important that mom is stable and that um she feels affirmed, she feels empowered, and that even where I think so many come in going, oh gosh, you're saying I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. Like with this thing that they start, feeling bad about what they've done. As long as you have not abused this child or neglected them in some way more, you haven't hurt them. You're just they're just not healing. And I know that's frustrating, but that's the truth. And the good news is, you have to, you're not going to hurt them more. The damage is already done unless you abuse or neglect them. And we're not going to, and no one's going to tell you to abuse or neglect these children. So, um, really helping them is helping mom first, and then start to unpack what I see going on when I'm with the child or the teen, trying to understand them, and then helping the parents start learning certain cues that are physical with these children because they all have them. It's just you're busy trying to keep the ship from sinking and
Mm,
doing all of those things. So you're not going to, you're going to miss some of them. And that's why a professional can be really important and helpful because we're looking for certain cues. We're looking for their nonverbal messages and things that they're saying and doing and learning them. And the other thing I would say for some parents that have adopted sibling groups, usually nothing is ever what it seems. And just know that. It's unpacking a lot because there's usually a lot of secrets, a lot of secrets. And even, with other kids that are just they're part of a sibling group, but we're only adopted as that single one. There is a lot of secrets, right? At the end that come out.
yeah.
These families that give up their children or lose their children to the state are, you know, in deep in their addictions. Well, what's addictions? Secrets, 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 secrets. It's just how many of them are they carrying?
Yeah.
And when these kids carry these secrets, these are the walls between you and them that make them feel like if you knew, you wouldn't want them because it's not pretty, it's messy. So, but in practical, getting mom, in a better place, a stable place, helping figure out what tools can help her to keep some structure going
Yeah.
while having that connection stay there if you can, or figuring out how to stabilize that child while you have to get some other things done. I mean, it's a tricky thing, but there are ways to do it. I mean, you're a single mom,
Hmm.
so it can be done. It's not there's no perfect.
Yeah.
No perfect.
And
But
so
yeah.
when you talk about secrets, like what does that mean as far as like you have a child or a sibling group that you've adopted? How do you handle something like that? Like how do you get them to open up and to trust you as a parent?
Okay, so by staying calm and not acting surprised even when you're surprised. So usually I prep all my parents. So I'll just say a couple of the most common things that I hear from that are standard from all children, doesn't matter where they're adopted from, is that most of them have strong, violent thoughts that they usually, don't vocalize because they know it's not what people want to hear, and that could make them like get them maybe put somewhere. And so I just normalize that with them and I normalize it with the parents to prepare them that we're looking for truth tellers. We want them to start getting vulnerable where they can share whatever, and we're not going to be surprised. We're going to be welcoming it, going, wow, great. You know what? I can see how you would have that thought. I can understand when I tell you no to ice cream for breakfast in the morning, how you just, would want to take that knife and you just want to hurt me with it. No is hard for you. You do not like the word no. I wonder, and then we get curious. I wonder why it's so hard to hear no. And see, that's the real shift is when you start getting curious and not condemning for these kids.
Right.
But as a parent, again, I'm a parent. I can tell you all this, but in the heat of things, you may not be able to walk that out when you're having a bad day or, you've just been depleted by everybody.
Right.
And, they'd said, I'm not doing that for the 10th time or 20th time the day. And you're just like, I want to kill this child. No, we're not going to kill the child. We're going to take a time out. You're going to need to take a time out and you're going to regroup. Or you're going to, if you have a spouse or a friend, you're going to hand a baton to it and just and say, hey, I need 10 minutes. I need to walk around the block. I need to cool down. I need to get
Yeah.
myself regulated. That piece is really, really important. That is critical in order to create an environment where that child can heal. And if you don't have that, or you can't create that, the chances of that child healing is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just need everyone to know that. I mean, you've got to start, the money to invest is maybe through a babysitter, and finding someone that can be on board with holding the structure. You don't need to explain everything to a babysitter of the crazy that you're dealing with. You just say, hey, I don't want sweets. They're allowed to do this. This is what the project's supposed, and anything else, please, you can text me, but this is what the schedule should look like. And you just have it written out. And for even some college students, they love that, because it's like, okay, they have their tasks that they have to do. We're not interacting, and I'm going to do that. You need to find help where you can take some of those breaks and you can maintain your sanity to do some of the things if you do not have someone there that can help you tag out. It's very, very difficult if your spouse is not on board. It will continue to divide in a negative way. And to me, it's a waste of your time and energy to continue if you can't get that spouse on board. But a good therapist should be able to get that spouse on board and them understanding. But if they can't for whatever reason, then attachment therapy it's not going to work.